Now, I've got to get back to the wicked damage being done with the government's global warming religion. Chris Bowen today, he was still claiming that he was so sure of what he was doing, he would love to debate it.
I very much welcome a debate about the competing plans for energy prices that will be put before the Australian people at the next election.
In fact, Bowen is so scared of debate about the damage he's doing that he skipped this debate in Port Stephens with the opposition's Ted O'Brien. That's out where locals are furious with Bowen's plan for a hideous wind farm off to their coast.
The person with whom I was meant to be here tonight to have a good, thorough, comprehensive debate was this fellow here, the Honourable Chris Bowen.
Joining me is Thursday regular guest Barnaby Joyce, the Nationals frontbencher and former Deputy Prime Minister. Barnaby, great to see you again. So, again today, we're reminded of the devastation being caused by Labor's net zero policies. I've got to ask, though, what about your own? I mean, where is the opposition? When is it going to finally admit that its own net zero targets are just as irrational and impossible and useless in making the slightest difference to our climate?
Well, I think the main thing is where we are on the path to at the moment, which is the apparent 2030, 82% intermittent power. They're not renewable. People keep calling them renewables. They're not renewable, okay? They're intermittent power. And where they are is not farms, intermittent power precincts. Not only do they not want them on the coast off Hunter Valley or Illawarra, we don't want them here either. We don't want your garbage on our land either. We go put your rubbish in Warringah. If that's where you want it, go put your rubbish off Manly. But don't put them in our seats. And it is true. It is inevitably true that intermittent power pushes up the price of power. And if you don't believe that, don't listen to Chris, don't listen to our side, listen to your power bill. Your power bill is going through the roof. And what we are seeing is this debate is not going to be won by the Labor Party, the Liberal Party, the National Party, the Teals or anybody else. It's going to be won by physics when it becomes completely and utterly untenable that you can possibly supply a nation, unless you want to live in a cave, unless you want to come out here to Danglemar and sleep in the grass there, sleep in the grass in amongst the cow manure. That's all right. If that's the type of life you want, you can do that without electricity. But if you want electricity, you have to have base load power. And what we're seeing even with Penny Sharp in New South Wales is they're paying to keep the coal-fired power stations going. And I think any plan is going to be talking about keeping the coal-fired power stations going until such time as you have an alternative. But what Mr. Bowen's doing is saying, I'll jump off the cliff and develop a parachute on the way to the ground. And what's happening? Absolute and utter chaos. And yet again, everybody's become poorer. And yet again, your power bills have gone up. And yet again, you're getting these pathetic, smirky, mealy-mouthed excuses from Minister Bowen, who would have to be the most unpopular politician in regional Australia, even vastly more unpopular than Mr. Albanese. And that, I thought, was going to be a tough race, but it's not.
Barnaby, I notice you have neatly sidestepped my question about your own net zero target, because I know that you think it's an absolute dog as well and don't want to say it and cause embarrassment for the party, but it is just ridiculous. And as for Zali Steggall, the member for Warringah, she was celebrating no wind farms off the Warringah coast. They're celebrating. I know they've got to be everywhere else but around. I mean, talk about it.
Doesn't it just drive you insane? This whole garbage that we're doing to ourselves, driving our nation into destitution, putting people out in the street, is to make Zali and her ilk happy. This was for her. You're doing all this for her. And yet, when she say, well, how about a little bit in your own backyard? Oh, no, it's Natural Heritage Trust or some other garbage. Now, have it in your own backyard, Zali. Put the transmission lines over Mossman. Go stand behind your virtue.
Look, honestly, this is an urban religion where it's the rural areas that get hit hardest. I mean, this is one of those things. It's always the people who live among concrete that think that the people in the grasslands, they've got to have the wind farms. But not them, not them. No.